Hello.
Hello from Mel and Pistachio. Can you maybe not put your butt in my face?
Yeah, emergency channel change, fun stuff. So people should be hopefully switching over soon if you were going to the other video first. But we're going to be talking about the last book, basically, in this series. Yeah, we did the last book. Presley's like, what are you guys doing? Yeah, mostly Harmless, the 5th book of the trilogy, which I always just think is hilarious.
The trilogy in 4 parts. So
right, even better,
kind
yes.
of an afterthought.
He was like, I will make it a trilogy. I will. No matter what you say, it's going to be a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, maybe not. And then probably everyone was like, you didn't finish it properly.
Yeah, well, I guess we can start off with the fact that it was the last book.
Yeah.
How are we all feeling about either the book by itself or as a conclusion even? So like ratings-wise maybe for anybody joining us as well. What did we give it?
Should we start with Mel background?
Sure.
Whoever wants to start, yeah.
Yes, I've just got a cat who's thinking about getting in the pocket of this hoodie.
So that's the perfect pocket.
Well, you can't see it. Right behind my camera is my dog with a toy in his mouth. So, like...
Are you going to get into the pocket? You like being pocket cat. Sorry, she's very distracting. What did I give it? I think I actually ended up giving it 3.5 stars, which is the lowest I've rated any of the books. And I think it was just that I didn't feel like it was a particularly good ending to the series. I enjoyed it as a book, and I thought that it was his usual humor was funny, and the way that some of the storylines met up, and I liked Trisha and Trillian's part. But yeah, just as in terms of finishing up a series, like I kind of felt like I think we've said all along.
I'm not laughing at you, Mel, I promise. It's how much my dog's face is just overtaking the camera every moment.
Pets, huh? Gotta love them. I think we all said with each book that like the books feel like they don't feel like a continuous series necessarily. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. Sorry, still early. Coffee is still slowly going through the system. So I'll wake up a bit soon.
So for me, I actually rated this one a lot higher than we were expecting. Like last month, I gave it a 2 stars. I was like, please just get me out of this series. Like I'm done. I actually rated this one a 4 stars.
Oh, cool.
So that is a huge leap up. I seem to have started with a 4 stars and finished on a 4 stars. So it feels like the rest of it's kind of had the middle book syndrome for like all the rest.
like 3 books.
Yeah. Just a whole middle. As a plot driven be careful. Sorry. As a plot driven reader, which I am more than anything else, I actually like this one a lot because it actually had a plot for me. So it wasn't just the characters. I like that we did actually get the perspective from the different characters as well, though. Obviously, we didn't get all of the characters back, but I feel like we had a very distinct plot line here. We very much had... I was going to say nothing, but that is not their name.
Random.
That is the one. I don't know why I called them. So we really had it being random and her kind of storyline, trying to figure out where she kind of fits. And I personally really liked that. And it felt like it was matching Arthur a lot as well, because it felt like that's what he was also trying to do, was figure out where he kind of was. So for me, I really like the fact that I had this plot line now, but also I really understood the other books because it really kind of put into place, okay, so it's because it's parallel universes, and this is how they are traveling through is because of the thing that happened in the first one when it came with like the plants and stuff. So I felt like I got that understanding now of where the series was going. So for me, I liked that a lot, and I was like, oh, okay, now I understand things, and now I understand what's actually happening. I've got this plot; it's kind of tied up some of the other questions I had. So for me, I really like this one. It wasn't quite a 5 stars, but this one also made me laugh as well. So yeah, for me, it was a definite 4 stars. I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I completely get that. I gave this one a 4 star as well. I also gave the first one a 4 and this one a 4. I do think the first one is still my favorite. Like it just edges it out a little bit. But I agree with a lot of the stuff that you said that it did feel, even though again, not all the series was like actually like one thing after the other. Like this last book, where did Fenchurch even go? Like why was that something that like 100% just got written out again? But I could see that he was trying to bridge the gap a little bit and at least give us a conclusion. And I really liked the addition of Random. She felt like the right age, like a perfect teenager. Like a lot of authors seem to not 100% get kids right. And I know she was a teenager, but at least she felt, for me being a mom especially, like she felt like a teenager. She felt like how she was supposed to and had her own plot and moved it forward. And so I liked a lot of that. I did want a little bit more from the actual like multiverse, parallel universe. Like I feel like that could have been pushed a lot and also tied in a lot because what is it, the third book where they do the cricket stuff? On the
Yes.
live discussion for that, I actually mentioned that like we were all confused about like the couch and all this kind of thing. And I was like, what if it was parallel dimensions and everything was going to be connected? And like there was such an opening for that that I feel like could have been pushed a little bit more. But I did like that we at least had that sort of stuff in there. Like it felt like a better conclusion because it tied it up at least a little bit more for me than the other books in the series. My cat's trying to get into this now.
All the pets are arriving.
All of them, Presley included.
Pistachio. Yes, Pistachio. You can come up here. You can come up.
I also felt like this one really continued on from the first one quite well. I feel like even if you were to miss out 2, 3, and 4, I feel like if you just read 1 and 5, it would still make a lot of sense. I feel like they kind of matched each other as books a lot, whereas the other ones kind of had their own little thing going on. But I feel like these two felt more connected than the other ones did, for me personally.
Yeah, no, I see that for sure. They mirrored each other a lot in ways that the rest of the series didn't. And I think I mentioned in the Discord chat at one point that I really feel like this could have been a very good duology with like book 1 and book 5. There were some things definitely that we needed from the middle 3 books, but like none of it was like big stuff. But like the guy that Arthur keeps killing, and so in his mind he knows that he's not going to die until he reaches this planet that I don't even know what it is because I listened to all the audiobooks. So like I never got to see it in word form. Um, but like those kind of little things, like there were little bits of important information from the rest of the 3 books that we did need in some way to get from book 1 to book 5. But I almost feel like there could have been a way to add those things in and make it a like maybe 2 longer books instead of 5 shorter ones, and it would have like really tied it in. Um, because yeah, I liked how it mirrored it in a way. I wish we had more information about like how we got back to Earth though. Like I know it had something to do with probability in a way versus like time travel. Like they tried to explain it. But I think that was just another one of those pieces where like I was hoping for a little bit more explanation and we just didn't quite get there for me. Like I just wanted them to like explain it more.
That's one thing that did surprise me throughout this whole series was the fact that yeah, it's a sci-fi. Like I get that they're not all like going to go into all the sci-fi stuff, but I feel like he didn't really at all. He's kind of like, this is just the way things are, instead of being more like, okay, so this is why things are. So even though he does like to talk a lot, like that's kind of his thing. I feel like Douglas Adams likes to kind of just chat because there's so many parts that at the very beginning I was so lost. You know the bit before chapter 1, and it was like, what is the exact wording? Give me 1 second. I'm going to get the book to say the exact wording. I was so lost. I was like, I am not sure if I'm going to like this. Give me 1 second. I'm going to get my book that's right in front of me. 1 sec.
Just see this hand waving.
There we go. Oh, I know I'll be back in 1 second.
Yeah, Presley's trying so hard to be on camera, and I'm just at the point where I'm like, dude, go do something for right now. And he's like, no. he wants to be in it so bad. He doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, this really, really confused me. Like, if any of you have any idea, please do let me know because I'm still lost. It just goes, anything that happens. Anything that in happening causes something else to happen, causes something else to happen. Anything that in happening causes itself to happen again, happens again. It doesn't necessarily have to do it in chronological order, though. And I was like, well, I know those are words, but what is this?
I think it was kind of his way of saying, like, there is no rhyme or reason, like things just happen and you can't necessarily control it. And because we're in this multiverse, like it could come around and happen again, or like it could be affected multiple different ways in different times or something. But yeah, maybe I feel like maybe that was a little bit of a like, I know this doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's just because stuff happens, if that makes sense. So, like it was kind of a bit of an excuse for yeah, I don't know, I feel like just moving on, sorry, from that, I will stop and let Chelsea say something if she had some thoughts on that.
Oh no, I think you're right. I think it was a quick introduction to let us know that like it's going to be random, and I guess also random. Yeah, the multiverse thing, it's not on a timeline. Like I think I don't remember the first part of the book. Like I don't remember being confused at that. It's possible that it was like because of the audiobook, it was just like something that it happened so quickly that I passed by it. But I think it was a very quick introduction of like this book is going to just be what it is and things happen. So I agree.
I think with the well, the way I've got the same book as you, Ashley, and the way that it was set out, it was like each page was a sentence or or a couple of sentences. So like you were meant to read it as like because they're on, obviously their own pages, it's meant to be quite like take this in, then take this in.
And I'm missing all of that because I did the audio.
Because you just listened, yeah. So they would have like just kind of.
No, that's interesting. I like when they do different formatting things like that for books because obviously it means something, and
yeah,
I didn't get that with the audio.
That's a shame. I mean, I don't
No,
know.
I have my book here, but I haven't been reading any physical books at all this month. Too busy.
That's fair.
Okay, Presley has to go potty. I'll be back.
Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like the more that we talk about the series in each live show, it kind of like changes my opinion of the series in general. And so I've kind of my opinion, my feelings towards it's kind of gone down a bit more than when I had read it previously. And so now, like this last one, I'm a bit like, huh. Even though it does, I agree with you, it does wrap up some stuff and like it does feel like there's more going on. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I feel like you maybe got the other one and this one mixed up because before you were saying, oh, it wraps everything up so nicely, whereas the last one didn't really do that and this one does. So I feel like in your head you might have got those two like the other way around, which can always happen. And because I remember you saying that you were reading them like back to back to back, so that'd be so easy to do. But I do think this one wraps up a lot more. So I'm like, oh, I think this is the one that you meant. Because hi, thanks for the hug. You good there? You don't usually give hugs. Are you okay? Yeah,
I'm
you're
not.
okay, huh?
I know you're giving attention to elsewhere, so hello, I'm here.
Hello, you
Oh,
big
he's so
softy.
cute. He's such a sweetie.
He isn't usually this close to the camera. Oh, hello.
He saw the other cat.
Full on smile.
He saw Pistachio. He was like, I must get in this too. There's a cat. How dare there be a cat?
He's like, I'm the mascot, thank you.
Not that creature. Yeah, I think probably I did a bit because it has been a while since I read the books. And I think I said before, I think I've only read mostly Harmless once before, whereas I've read the others a few times. So I think potentially I had it in my, like I just hadn't gotten used to it as much. But also there was like a lot of people really didn't like mostly Harmless, and a lot of people felt like it kind of was a real like downer to the series, and that it ended like it kind of the way that it ended kind of like a lot of people didn't like the way that it ended, and that it ended with the Vogons trying to like fix things so that every Earth in every dimension and blown up. And I think a lot of people had enjoyed the fact that Earth had come back. And so when that happened, I think a lot of people would be like, hey, you ruined it. Why would you do that?
He was like, there's no chance of a sequel. Everywhere's gone.
Yeah, all done.
He's like, I'm fed up of you guys asking me for more books. I'm telling everybody.
Yeah,
Done.
exactly.
Dusted.
And then, Owen Colfer came along and was like, ha, 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 you have not finished. Well, the series isn't finished. You might have finished it, but the series didn't finish.
I'm actually really curious what he could have done if, like, every world is destroyed. I'm like,
Yeah.
how did that come to being?
And how did they get into each? Like, how did the Vogons know to go into each different multiverse and destroy the Earth?
Were they in every single one? I heard.
was-
I thought it was like the one Earth that they were on. So Trisha's Earth is obviously still there. I did like the introduction of her at the beginning because we had been talking about for a while that we would all love like a trillion lead book, and it almost felt like that for a little bit. But so I interpreted the ending with the Vogons as like, I guess, because like some of the universes they succeed. Like Arthur's original one, they do blow up the Earth in the way that they're supposed to. I interpreted it as her Earth didn't get blown up for some reason, and that's also potentially the one that Arthur and Fenchurch obviously get sort of like moved to. Again, I wish we had more explanation for it. And so then they waited for a specific time where the aliens that have amnesia can blow it up for them. So I thought it was just one specific instance of Earth.
Right. Because there was a
not
little.
all of them. Some of them were gone. Some of them were there. Some of them were hot dogs, sausages. So I mean, I could be wrong.
Sorry,
but
go on.
No, you're good.
Arthur did travel to
multiple places
multiple
of
Earths
where it should have been.
Yeah, and there was always Earth, but it was never Earth, if that makes sense. Like it was always the right land masses and everything. But
there's only one more Vogons hiding and waiting for the Earth to be destroyed. Like that was my understanding. Is like, yeah, there's multiple different planets that are in Earth's place that are not exactly Earth, and I guess the one that Trish is from is close enough to the original one that they also were supposed to be blown up for the inner space highway thing.
Yeah.
And somehow it just didn't happen yet until they were able to fit that together at the end of this book.
But it definitely had a bit where we were actually with the Vogons, and it was talking about how the Vogons it had a bit where it was talking about the main Vogon on that captain was like, I'm gonna get them all kind of thing.
I mean, maybe that was just my interpretation. Was he was just one planet, one
Yeah.
instance of Vogons. But I think it would be also really cool if the Vogons, I guess, could space travel, multi-dimension travel, and they are the same Vogons in each dimension. I
Mm.
think that'd be cool, but I don't think that would have been thought about enough by Douglas Adams to like actually be that case. Because
Yeah.
again, we have a lot of the different multiverse instances, but not enough explanation for me to like 100% believe everything was intentional for it.
Yeah. That was the impression that I got, but then again, maybe I misinterpreted. Like it
Or
was
maybe
very
it's
small
you're
bit,
allowed to
and
interpret anything you want.
well, yeah. I mean, that was like he did say at the beginning, like things just happen. So I guess things that just happen can include us interpreting things our own way.
Oh yeah, that definitely makes sense to me. Oh, you see yourself on the camera now. Elliot is awake and has seen herself. And then there's Presley too.
I I was wondering, you know those like is it not House? That's not. I'm thinking of Dr. Seuss now. I'm thinking of like Who's. They're not Who's. The people who were like on Earth, the ones that were like meant to be the Earthlings before like the
The ones
spaceship
that
crashed.
crashed.
Not the ones that crashed, but the ones that were already on
Oh,
the
yeah.
Earth.
Yep.
So like when they kind of like left sort of thing, I was wondering whether like the one where he becomes like a bread maker, like he becomes
Yes.
like a sandwich maker. I was like, I wonder if that's for the way that they would have been,
Oh,
or
yeah,
like on the
maybe.
trees. And I was like, that would be like the little tree stumps all along. I was like, that would be a really cool thing. 'Cause I still wonder what happens to him. So it'd be kind of interesting if it was one of those. But because it was like 42, basically just before he kind of like when he left, I was kind of like, well, I wonder if that's who they are as people when he's like the sandwich maker, whether that's like the people who were meant to be there. So it like ties up nicely to find out what 42 is and like the
Mm.
very next part.
I was under the impression that that planet wasn't Earth, and it was a completely different planet that he crash landed on. But again,
Oh, you mean where he was a
where
sandwich
he was a
maker?
sandwich maker, I thought that was something completely different. And I really liked the sandwich part. I don't know if it was just me or not, but I really liked the sort of like they introduced it without us knowing it was Arthur at first, being like, oh, he has 4 knives and they're all for a different purpose. And I was just like, yeah, okay. And then it was just sandwich making. But um, yeah, I thought that was on a completely different area. And
You
that's why
might be right. I'm
there was
also a bit
there was a lot
confused
of
about there's
planets
a
and
lot of
stuff that they were
different.
doing at that point because like Ford was also at the the corporate offices trying to do stuff, and then he sent it off somewhere else, and then Trillian was off doing her thing. I'm I don't know if this is just me as well again, but I liked the part at the beginning with Trisha and Trisha being like, I decided not to go into science as much as I had before because
Mm.
she didn't go with Zaphod. But then in the same instance, we now have Trillian, who was a scientist and did go with Zaphod and experienced a lot of this stuff with Arthur, and she's also in TV. I didn't understand how that was like there. How did she get from one
Yeah.
aspect of the Hitchhiker stuff, and then she had a kid, which was with Arthur, not with Zaphod, even though I think Ford mentioned like one book earlier, like, oh, they have a kid together, and so I was like, huh? Like I understand that's a thing, but like, how did she get into TV? Because I thought that was just Trisha, and that was the reason she got into TV was because she dropped the science because she didn't go with Zaphod. But then Trillian still went with Zaphod, still was
And
doing
still,
science,
yeah.
and then she still ends up doing TV interviews and
I
stuff. And
think
I'm like, how do we
Yeah.
get here?
I hadn't
I
really.
was confused for a while. I thought they were the same person when they brought her back up, and I knew the names differentiated them. Like Trisha and Trillian are two different people.
Mm.
But when they introduced Trillian again, it was again about, oh, well, she's on the radio talking to people.
I I thought she quit science because she didn't really know how she was meant to study science, seeing everything she'd already seen.
I mean,
So
maybe
she
I missed that and there was something in a different book, but
I
I just
No,
I
I
got
think it was in.
confused.
I think it was in this
Pistachio.
one. I think at one point she
Mm.
say
Okay.
about, well, how am I meant to believe all of this kind of thing when I've already seen it all? Like, how am I
That
meant
Mm.
was
to?
Trisha, I thought.
Was it Trisha? I thought
I
it was
thought it was
Trillian.
Trisha. It was her saying that she didn't want to do the science anymore because she's already seen a spaceman. She already knows that aliens exist. So she didn't want to go do science anymore because it was like astrophysics and all this kind of thing because she saw Zaphod and he had two heads and he proved to her that this was a
Yeah,
thing.
and she
And so
couldn't,
she decided to go into TV
and
because
she
British
couldn't prove it.
accents sell
Yeah,
it
she couldn't prove it,
to
and
other people.
she knew
But
that
she knew.
if she was trying to study it with that knowledge, she
And
wouldn't
at
be
the
able.
same
Yeah,
time, it is very possible that he said the exact same thing twice,
about
and once was
Trillian.
for Trisha and one was for Trillian, and I did not catch it.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact they did explain that for Trisha.
Yes, that was definitely for Trisha. But you're right, they could have also explained it for Trillian at some point as
It's
well.
100% possible because I know he does like to seem like he repeats things where sometimes it doesn't feel like it would need repeating, but
Mm.
then it has a little bit of a twist of like why he said it. So it could be that they did say it for Trillian, and I just was like, oh, you're talking about Trisha again. Because they 100% said it for Trisha at the beginning.
I don't remember. I didn't even question it. Like, I didn't even go, oh, hang on, why is Trillian in TV? I was just like, oh, yeah, okay. Because
Mhm.
I think because I was more like, partly probably because Trisha had already had she's in
Mhm.
TV. So it just kind of was like, okay, yeah. But also because of the way that Trillian like turned up, dropped Ransom off, and then left, it was kind of just like, okay, it's more about Ransom.
Yeah.
Like, I was a bit more invested in that anyway.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
just didn't even notice it.
Yeah, the only reason I questioned it was because I got confused when they were
Yes,
starting to
about
talk
who
about
you
Trillian,
were.
and I
Yeah.
thought we were talking about Trisha, and I was like, wait,
Wait a
would have been
minute.
better if they weren't still in the same job. But again, if he would have doubled down into the whole multiverse thing, it could have been a whole they ended up on the same job because, even though they're two different people, they're basically the same person. They follow the same path eventually. But he didn't go that way.
Did was Trisha not? Hmm. I'm trying to think whether Trisha was more just Earth based though, whereas
Yeah,
Trillian was
Trisha
more
was Earth-based. Yeah.
interspatial.
She was, yes. So that was the thing. Trisha was on Earth and was trying to get TV anchor job things on Earth. And then the aliens that had amnesia came and picked her up to talk about astrology because
Yeah.
they wanted to know about their horoscopes. And so she did eventually go to Rupert and do that thing, but she was 100% TV stuff based on Earth. And then everything that was TV stuff based outside in the whole other planets
Was
was
Trillian.
Trillian.
Yeah.
And we first heard about that, I think, when Arthur was a sandwich maker and it was on the radio talking about her, or maybe it was a TV. I don't know if they had TV there, but he was like, oh, I know her.
I know her. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a radio because he was like, I know that voice.
Yes.
Yes.
Because then he was
What,
like
what
trying
do
to
you,
place it for a good second. He was like,
It's
how do I know
been
that
a
voice?
while since he's seen her, since we've
I
seen
kind of like
her.
the grumpy old man who was just like, of course you've heard it. It's like everywhere. Like you can't escape it. Like turn the channel, it's like it's still on, and he's just like, oh my god, get it over. And he just completely destroys it in retaliation. I loved that. I was like, that is such a good grumpy old
Yeah.
man like story right there. I feel like there's parts of this one that made me laugh, and I feel like
Mhm.
the series hasn't made me laugh that much. The first one made me laugh a little bit, but the other ones didn't really do that much. But the last one I think made me laugh again, and I really really liked that. It just felt, even though there is quite a lot of like the the deeper stuff, such as like trying to find yourself, feeling so lost, that sort of thing. But I just thought it felt lighter than the other ones, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it had a little bit more brevity and like you said, a little bit more humorous comedy, not as much dry sarcasm, like looking at a mirror image of like stuff here but in space. I do
Yeah.
think it brought a little bit more of that in, and I liked having the addition of like some of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy stuff again, like near the beginning. Like they had a little bit more of that added in, which I missed in some of the books too. So I do think maybe he added that in knowing it was the last one, and so it had a little, I would say a little bit more of the more actual like laugh out loud elements.
Mm.
I don't. I feel like I keep taking control of the chat, and I don't mean
Oh,
it.
you're good.
I was gonna say, you know how we're all like in parallel universes, and this one we obviously didn't get Marvin,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Mm.
But that's probably because he died in book 4, so that's understandable. But I don't
But it's
know
a
if it's
multiverse,
just
so we
me.
could have had many Marvins.
Yeah. For me, I don't know if it is just me though, but I kind of felt like that happy robot kind of
Could have
gave me
been.
Marvin. But
Mm.
alternative universe wise, he's like so helpful and he's like so smart. But it's just kind of like he's still the Zaphod, like he was at like the beginning of the first one. I'm like, if this is just a parallel universe where he's actually found Ford instead, and he's still so useful and so helpful, and he's just like, I'm here for helping things, because it was still the like emotional like
Mm.
robot, and I was like, I wonder if this is just like, what if Marvin was very very happy instead of very very depressed.
Well, I was actually hoping that they were going to go into the robots a little bit more. I didn't feel like he was as close to Marvin just because that I can't remember what he called the robot, but he could fly and like Marvin couldn't fly. But they did mention the whole like personality aspect, and I was almost hoping that they were going to like dive into that a little bit more, and then like I was wanting some sort of Marvin character, whether it was actually him or a parallel version of him, to like show up, or like them explain like this is how we created the personalities, and the depressing one was on accident and here he is, like like something. Because I thought it was interesting that they did bring that up, and I liked that robot a lot. But I didn't think they went as far enough with it as I would have liked.
I just saw in my book his name was Colin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love how they included a little bit of like Ford's falling or something. And it's like calling out to him, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't tell him what his name was." He's like, he's not gonna know that I'm trying to call him right now.
Why is he not in? Oh, yeah, because he doesn't know.
I didn't tell him he has a name.
Parts like that for me were really funny. I was like, that
Hmm.
that just hits the spot for me.
Yeah, I also missed Zaphod a little bit again. He was not in it at all, which I guess I just wasn't expecting with the
Mm.
fact that it was like the last book, and he wasn't really in the last book either. But they obviously brought Trisha and then Trillian back a little bit, and so I just sort of kept expecting him to show up, even though he's like probably my least favorite character when he does have a big part. But he didn't show up, so I was a little bit bummed out that they didn't like try to include more of the main cast in this book.
Yeah. And give him a bit of a
Redemption.
conclusion.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
the last we hear is him literally leaving God, the shed, and he leaves,
Mm.
and that's the last we hear of him. So we have no conclusion for him at all. Like,
No, because he's
except
mentioned
he got
once.
rid of one of his heads, right? He's only got one head now.
I think Trillian mentioned something about that. Yeah, because like he's mentioned
Yeah.
once in book 4 by Ford, saying that him and Trillian were together and had a kid or whatever, which obviously now we know is random. Okay.
But random's asses.
I know. Which is why I was
Because of
like,
a
I was
sperm
curious
bank.
how the timeline was supposed to
Yeah.
work, because she's obviously a teenager too. Like you can just tell based on the way that she acts and like everything that she's going through. She's trying to find herself. She's going through puberty probably. And we know that Arthur had all of that go on after Fenchurch disappeared,
Mm.
which was in book 4 when Ford told them about, oh, yeah, they have a kid together or whatever, because he was, going to the sperm bank to pay for
Yes.
flights to
Yeah.
planets. So, like, I really want to know what the timeline is, because
Yeah.
Ford apparently thought he knew of a kid beforehand, before
Before.
Arthur did all his other stuff. And, like, again, was he on that planet making sandwiches for 13, 14, 15 years? I
It
mean,
did seem like he'd
possible.
been there for a
While.
while because he
Yeah.
was very much entrenched as the sandwich maker.
Well, and they had the whole like, oh, the spaceship crashed and he now has like a limp or something. Like, so it
Yeah.
obviously had time to heal too.
and he had an apprentice and everything. So like he'd been there long enough to become part of their culture and like have a capitalized title, and be somewhat revered, and then be so important that you got an apprentice. Like, I didn't get the impression in their society, because it was kind of a bit of more like a kind of feudal society, that you would apprentice to someone if they weren't considered quite an important part of your society, like, you know, the blacksmith's apprentice and the and the baker apprentice and the like the person that manages the horses, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is why I love that he's in charge of sandwiches. Like,
Yes,
he's like,
yeah.
I am so good at sandwiches that I am like one of the most important people on this planet. I loved that.
And I love that it was an accident as well. Like, he was like, oh yeah, I just, you know, I just got hungry one day and I just was like, oh, I'll just make a sandwich. And they were all like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
With their perfectly normal beasts.
Yes.
Yeah. They're perfectly normal. Nothing to see here.
It's totally, absolutely normal that it would just suddenly drop out of thin air, run across the plane, and then disappear again.
I thought that kind of connected quite well with the second book, with like the restaurant at the end of the universe, because when they go through the portal bit into like the nowhere land, they ended up at like basically an in and out. And it was just like they're there, and I was like, I love that sort of connection to like the second book. And I knew it was such a small one, but a part of me was like, that fits really well for that. Like, it's such a small link, but it's such a nice bit to add in. And then I think that's where he sees Ford again as well. No, Ford's already there, but like we see that Ford is basically like rich, because as long as he writes like a 2-second review, they're good.
Then he can expense anything he wants.
Well, and he was obviously doing that to get back at the people that made him be the food columnist, and I thought that was hilarious.
Fine, if you're going to make me be a food columnist, then suck it up.
And this is something that I didn't think about right away, but like when he's in that restaurant, he's talking, or the bar or whatever, he's talking about like the pink spaceship parked outside and how he tipped the singer or whatever. And at the very beginning of this book, I think it's Arthur or somebody mentions Elvis, and how people, like, somebody says, oh, people think Elvis, da da da. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be Elvis in that bar singing, like, that's Elvis. Because he even mentions whatever song it was, and then they talk about blue suede shoes later. And I think one of the covers of the book has like a little Elvis sort of picture thing on it.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, oh, that's why we're talking about Elvis at the beginning of the book, because he's actually been abducted by aliens or something and singing in this bar. I thought that was funny.
I
actually never picked up on that at all.
It's very subtle. They don't mention him by name at all, except for at the very beginning of the book, and then it's all Elvis hints.
Yeah.
At that part, which obvious, my kid is named Presley, so I picked up on that a little bit. My grandma was obsessed with Elvis. Her uncle was his bodyguard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was like one of those things where like they've met him before. My mom, I think, played with his daughter one time at like a thing. So like, yeah, I was like, I just thought it was cool. They had like the little hints about that.
That was cool. They did also, when they got into the pink spaceship and they flew off, and then Ford played some Elvis Presley, and Arthur was like, oh, I didn't know you liked Elvis Presley or something like that.
Yeah, Arthur did not catch on to the fact that Elvis was the singer at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Despite the king, and then it being like in a desert, and like it was all, you know, it was
there was
all
a lot of little hints.
like,
yeah.
Is it Gracetown?
That's Graceland?
Graceland.
Oh, Presley?
So like it was kind of nods to like, yeah, like even the fact that it was in the desert and it was a bar, it kind of nods to like his kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Ranch kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I love the went right over my head when I was reading it though. I was like,
I love the fact that done whatever they'd done to make the whole reason why the normal beasts turned up in the other planet and the other dimension was because they had created some kind of bubble, which meant that the beasts had to like skip the king's little domain
Yes.
on their like normal migration.
Yeah, I like that they had an explanation for that, even if it really was just so they don't run through the bar.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we have an establishment here. We don't need normal beasts.
I thought that was funny. I like that bit.
Yeah, I really liked the ending of this one when everything just sort of like came together. And I knew because Arthur had kept mentioning, oh, well, I can't die yet. Like I was hoping something was going to come from that. And
Yeah.
it still caught me like, I guess not off guard, but like it was still like the way that they had like made it actually come together was a little surprising. I really loved how they got out of like their taxi or whatever it was, and like the address of the club was 42, and I was like, something's going down.
Something. Hang on.
And then it was the ID of the guy and everything, and I was like, yep, okay.
I really liked that when the guy got shot in there, like because obviously it wasn't Arthur initially, it was like the other guy. But I really just love how you just see him be like, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
The acknowledgement.
I
You
really
again.
love that. He's like, it's
And
always the same guy.
always
Like,
Arthur Dent. And then Arthur's like, oh crap. Like I like that's the moment where he goes, hang on.
Yeah.
Wait, is this like I just finished saying it's okay, I'm not there yet. And it's like it was never a planet, dude. It was never a planet.
Yeah. When I'm done, baby, we're almost done. You're okay. Yeah, I liked the ending. Like, I don't really like open endings, and I know it wasn't like 100% an open ending, but it didn't feel like it had as much conclusion as like people might want necessarily. But in some ways, it just felt right because they had at least, tied up the whole thing with like the guy that he keeps killing all the time. Like that whole like line of reasoning finally got resolved. And I
Yes.
really liked that. But now it does mean that this extra book that Owen Colfer has, what is that coming from? Like, where is that going to go or start? Or, like, is this a whole nother multiverse thing? Like, I'm personally going to read it just because I really do like that author specifically. But I mean, like, we sort of ended book 5 on a pretty, like, solid, this is an ending here.
Yeah.
The Earth is no more. Arthur is gone now. Like, that's what it felt like. So I'm like,
Yeah. What's Owen Colfer doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am kind of curious to read the book, but I just don't think that I'm really in the mood to read it in June. Like I just kind of was like, yeah, I'll get to it at some point. But yeah. I think because I've got Empire of Gold for the other read along I'm doing, which is huge. And then it's also Amazing Readathon. So I'm trying to do lots of fantasy for Amazing Readathon. I'm just a bit like, maybe I'll read that later.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've been listening to everything on audiobook. I have literally only picked up, I think, one manga at the very beginning of this month, and everything else that I've read has been audiobooks. Like I've still done like 13, 14 hours of audiobooks so far. But I didn't request the audiobook of this one from my library early enough, so it has a few weeks wait, so I probably wouldn't get to it in June either.
Yeah.
So I do want to read it eventually, but it probably just won't be something that we do a discussion about necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we could always put a discussion chat in the Discord, and if anybody does
oh
want to
no,
read it and talk that way.
I feel like they do want to read it. So I just googled it. Just to see what that one was about.
Synopsis? Okay.
So I'm not going to read out the whole part. But it was like, what is another thing about? It says it features a pantheon of unemployed gods, everyone's favorite renegade galactic presidents. We'll probably actually find out what actually happened to Zaphod at long last. A love struck green alien, an irritating computer, and at least one very large slab of cheese. So it feels like maybe they added in. It kind of sounds like that's where a lot of the movie has actually come from, because the cheese with the mice, with the galactic president, obviously, if it's like unemployed people on irritated computer. It kind of sounds like that's maybe the guy who was like with all the legs in the movie.
Mm,
So it feels like maybe a
I'm
lot of what
curious,
the movie
maybe.
could have actually been is actually from that book.
Well,
So
see,
it's
now
kind
I'm
of trimmed
wondering,
that
when did that book
thing.
get published?
2009
That was after the movie. Movie was
was it?
2008. Yeah.
Okay, so
That's when
maybe
I
he actually
graduated high school, so I know.
took some of the movie then and just went,
That
you know
could
what?
be.
that could be, yeah.
That could be for sure. Maybe they took this because there is stuff in the movie that did not happen in any of this series. So maybe they took some of that and put it in the book and gave it a more linear, or maybe not linear, but like a plot with it. Because I always thought, have all three of us seen the movie? Mel, have
I
you
have,
seen?
but I don't remember
Well, because I
really
just
anything
always
about it.
I was waiting for some more stuff from the movie to come up in this series because of the fact that like the first book doesn't do everything the movie did. Because I always thought it was very interesting that sort of like gun that Trillian ends up having near the end of the movie that is like about people's thoughts. And like I really liked that part
I
because she's the only woman in that whole crew. And so then they
Mhm.
actually get to go through that a little bit about how Zaphod was treating her through the movie and things like that. Things that I really liked personally and then didn't show up in the books.
Mhm.
I was
I actually
waiting
thought
for it,
that
but
I thought the gun that Random had, and she was like, "Be careful that you don't actually know how to use it." And
I thought
thing,
that was a real gun
it came
because
across
she
to me
killed the
like that
guy.
was the.
She killed the guy that Arthur the I don't
Yeah.
I listen on audiobooks, so I don't know any names. And but like the guy that was like, I was a rabbit and you killed me and like you're always gonna kill me.
Oh yeah, yeah. She
Arthur
shot
ducked,
him.
and the reason he blamed Arthur for it is because Arthur was supposed to be shot on accident, but he wasn't, it was the other guy. So I think it was just a real gun.
I don't know. I think it's just the size of it and stuff made me think it was the other one. Maybe she has two guns. Why not? Why not have all the guns? If you're gonna go the whole
Okay.
plot, if you're gonna go the whole like universes, might as well just have all of them.
Yeah, why not?
She comes packing. She has like the stuff on the back, dual swords. Yeah,
Never know what you're gonna need.
that'd be
What
great.
are you doing, Pistachio?
I really thought it was kind of sweet, the whole watch aspect.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I thought that was
how
cute.
she was like, okay, well, I don't really like you. Like, you've kind of abandoned me. I don't know where I'm meant to be or anything. I'm not like you. I'm not really like Trillian. But then she gets this really big fascination with the watch, and when she breaks it, all she wants to do is try and fix it for him. And she's like so determined. I thought that was really, really sweet, and just her kind of way of kind of being like, I do actually want to know you, but
Mm,
like, I don't know how to want to do that because I've been left at daycares for so long that it's kind of like years have passed where I don't see anybody.
mm.
So it kind of felt like her way of kind of trying to be there for
Hmm.
him.
Well, I mean, he definitely tried for her, and I think that's a very maybe one of the reasons I really liked her as a character too is being able to see that like she was brought into this world with a mother who I do think did love her, but obviously had a really demanding job. My kids are gonna fight. Um,
Oh no.
and then she's never known her dad because he literally was just a donor, the only other human in the entire galaxy universe that they are specifically in. And she just now is like, here you go, here's your kid. And he's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm actually a dad. I'm going to try and do as much as I can. And so I did like the dynamic of that a lot.
Arthur definitely stood up. Like
He did, definitely.
you don't see like I'm not saying that you don't see that much in books and things, but whenever it's kind of like in books or at least the ones that I read, it's like they'll prove it, and it's like
Mm.
she just said it to your face, like,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
how.
Yeah. That's the proof, dude. Like she knows.
When she immediately, like, when she tries to run away and stuff, he knows, like, exactly where she's going to go.
Yeah, she's
And no
yeah.
matter what, he's going after her, too. Like, I really liked how that was portrayed. Even though, again, he did not ask for kids. Yes, he
Mm.
did, leave his DNA lots of places to pay for things. But the
But
way that they
also
had
like
that relationship,
yeah.
I did like how that went down.
Yeah, I like that as well. And I did like that he stepped up, like you said, And it was like more than you'd even, I mean, like, yeah, there's a lot of stories where the fathers don't step up.
Well, especially when they're
Um,
already a teenager. Like he missed a
yeah,
lot of stuff and he
yeah,
just, went straight into it like, okay, I'm your dad now. Let's figure this out and try and connect and
yeah.
yeah.
But it wasn't even like a situation of like, oh, we had a one night stand or we broke up and she never told me or whatever. It was like, well, yeah, I mean, plenty of people do sperm donorship and they never expect
Yeah.
to be part of that child's life. It's just not part of how donorship works. Like you don't even know who the person is. You have no identifying information. So like the fact that Trillian figured it out and then
I
Arthur
think
was like,
Chilean had to have known. She's
oh,
so
she would have
smart.
had, yeah,
She's
she
like,
would have
oh
had
yeah,
to have
there's
known.
one human that has left DNA
It's
places for
obviously
me to
going to be
use. I
Arthur
know
Dent, yeah.
exactly who that is. Arthur did not think about, oh, there's one human left in the galaxy.
No.
Somebody could potentially use my DNA. He's probably like, nobody can use that. He's not thinking about it.
But like, yeah, it was good that because I mean, he could have very easily turned around and just been like, well, that was just biological matter. Like it wasn't, I'm not emotionally connected to that. I'm not legally or like, it's got nothing to do with me. Like, it's not even a case of like, we were in love, but then we weren't. And then I didn't know. She never told me or anything like that. It was like, it's just biological matter. It's the same as blood and whatever else he was donating. Like,
yeah, a lot of stuff.
it's not like you get a blood transfusion and then you go hunting for the person to.
Can you imagine?
Gave you the blood. You gave me this blood. You owe me. Like, yeah, you owe me for all the years I've looked after the blood that's inside of me. I apologize for this cat. She wants to get out of the room we're in, but she's not. She's the fastest eater, but she's not allowed to have anything except her own food. And if she leaves the room before anyone else has finished eating, then she will eat their food. And she's not allowed to because she's not allowed to snack because she has diabetes. So she just has to have her breakfast and then her insulin and then that's it. Whereas the other two cats take longer to eat. So she's always in this room being like, oh man, let me out. And she's offended by the door. So she's just kind of wandering around being like, let me out. And also because I'm in here, I think it's worse. I think she's like, why are you just sitting there? Seriously. Anyway, that's the story of Pistachio.
Animals are so demanding.
Mm-hmm.
Think they run the world.
Mm-hmm. Our cats get
just
very
like
offended.
The mice.
Just like the mice. Our cats get very offended by closed doors.
I have a cat that can open doors, like if it has the handle doorknob. So there are some doors in this house that have the actual knob, so that he can't open the door.
Yeah.
One also so she can't open the door. She can't twist those ones yet. But yeah, if it's one of those just like levers, I have one cat that will open the door.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, we're so they get offended by closed doors. So they stand at the doors and like, meow. So it's going to be interesting later in the year when they are no longer allowed into our bedroom at night. They're going to be like, excuse me, why? But you know what cats are like. They're like,
oh yeah,
I don't want this door to be shut. But the minute you open it, they're like, I didn't want to go in there.
Well, and see, that's the thing with our cat that can open doors is we have to basically just leave our door open and let them come and go how they want, because if you close the door, he'll open it. If you lock the door, he'll go think, 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 think. He'll just constantly try to open the door. Constantly. It's loud, too. I'm just like, dude, we don't want you. And he's like, yes, you do. Think,
no, you do. I know you do. Don't lie to me.
yeah.
Oh, dear.
Okay, was there anything else we wanted to talk about? I think I hit everything that I had thoughts and feelings about while reading. I did like this one a lot. So that was good for me, at least.
The only thing I can think we haven't spoke about is the bird.
Oh, the extra Hitchhiker's guide that wasn't a Hitchhiker's guide.
Yeah.
I kind of liked that, like when he entered the room, it said like panic.
Yeah, instead of don't
Mm.
panic.
So like the don't panic and it being like all like in black rooms, like all like basically like closed off, and it was like inside is panic, and I was like, oh, that is such a clever little thing to add in for like don't panic, don't use this. And then he still ends up kind of using it anyway. But I thought that was just like a really small touch that I wouldn't have thought
Mm.
of otherwise. Also, hello Ty's nose. I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of bumpy at the moment because he got sunburn on it the other day,
Aw.
and then it became like torrential flood weather basically for like a week. But like his nose is still like recovering, so it's still like dry.
Aw, poor little guy.
But yeah, but yeah, I thought that bird was like really cool. I like the fact that it could like basically do everything.
Mm.
I thought that was like a nice touch for it as well because before it's like, oh, we just have all this information. Now we have something that can like make it kind of come to life, can actually do all these things. So I thought it was like a nice little bit to add in the guide again. Because I feel like in the middle books we kind of lost the guide
Mm.
quite a bit. So it's kind of nice having something quite bold with the guide again.
Well, and it was like so different too because it was almost like the opposite of the Hitchhiker's Guide, but they obviously made it into even more because like he was the force that changed things on purpose depending on like who he was working for, which was very
Mm.
interesting. And again, I feel like we could have had like a whole lot more to really dive into that because it sounded like you think that it's working for you, but it's really working for a higher power in some
Mm.
way potentially. Because it sounds like it was also the reason why those aliens had amnesia and ended up on Rupert because they were supposed to go to this other war that wasn't even a war anymore that Trillian was supposed to cover. There was a lot of stuff that like was obviously connected, and it was all the bird's fault. Which I thought was very interesting because like when they first introduce it, you're like, oh, an extra guide that's not a guide. But then when it shows up the next time, it's way more.
Mm.
Like I almost feel like this book could have been a longer book just because of that person, like specifically. Like it could have been a whole lot more just because it could do a ton of stuff.
It'd be interesting to see if the bird ends up in Owen Colfer's book as well, and whether he uses that in as anything.
Yeah, because I mean, it was also on Earth that got destroyed. But if anybody's going to be showing up that was on Earth, it could have disappeared and shown up somewhere else or something. You never know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Who knows? I'm more interested in reading the book now.
I'm very curious. We'll have to see.
Yeah. We can do a buddy read later in the year, not like necessarily, like you said, make it part of a
Yeah.
live show and stuff, but we can always still, yeah.
Or if we want to keep the Discord open, at least we can always just like make a channel for that too. And whenever somebody gets to it, if they have thoughts or
Yeah.
want opinions or something, we could always do that.
Yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, I think we are. I feel like we're winding up.
Yeah. Pretty sure we've talked about everything that I had thought about while reading. So
Yeah, same.
okay.
I can't think of anything else.
It's probably getting pretty late for you anyway, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Ashley.
About 25 past 12.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So it's a little bit late. I
We
usually
can
head to bed about 1, so I mean, I'm still like
You're getting there for sure. Yeah. All these time zone changes just made it a little bit harder near the end of this.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's
Okay, well, I guess we can say goodbye to all of our viewers that joined us. Thank you all so much. But I think we're going
Thanks,
to end it
everyone.
here.